Today we're doing something a bit different. This is a device that I saw when we were in Japan, and I really wanted to buy it when we were there, but I held off and bought it, well, just recently. So this is a Hyperkin SupaBoy SFC, and it's a portable handheld console for SNES cartridges. It's a bit of a legal side skirt because since you're using the original cartridge, they're not selling it with any games pre-included, no ROMs, anything like that. I think it gets past Nintendo's legal department. But we're going to take it apart today, see what's underneath, and also remove the dust that came pre-installed under the LCD. So that's part of what we're doing. And then we might look at this later from a benchmark if we can figure out how to do it. I don't know. But let's take it apart and see what's really in here to play these old Super Nintendo games. Before that, this video is brought to you by us and the Gamers Nexus store. You can go to store.gamersnexus.net to pick up one of our ceramic mugs, critically acclaimed mod mats, or educational video card teardown and PCB anatomy posters that teach the names and placements of all the key PCB components. Learn more at store.gamersnexus.net or click the link below. So this is it. This is the Hyperkin SupaBoy SFC. As you can see, it's got Primal Rage socketed right now, and that's just an SNES cartridge. The cart reader's up there. We actually have, for other reasons, for this, we have the original SNES here next to me. And if you look down, let's see, look down into the pinout down there, it's obviously the same thing because the cartridge does fit. Pins are different color, but that doesn't matter. So this handheld version is taking what was originally in here and just making it a bit more portable, although it's a pretty large portable. And this is a somewhat legitimate way to play your SNES games without going the emulator route. Now it does also, here's the dust particles I was talking about, it does also include those, annoyingly. So we're gonna try and get in there and maybe remove those, I don't know. But this is something I've wanted since we went to Japan. So bought it finally, and we're just gonna take it apart and see what it looks like underneath. I guess I'll give you a walk through the outside. You can plug in the original controllers right here. So there's your controller input. Stand it up like that if you want a terrible viewing angle experience to play it without actually being handheld. And just for perspective, speaking of viewing angles, if you're at the angle of about the camera right now, we would need this to be almost dead on for you to see any gameplay. Otherwise, any other angle, it's pretty much blacked out. For the rest, you've got your XAYB, you have start select, D-pad over here, and then the controller inputs. And for the bottom, this toggles bright or increases brightness one tick at a time. I think it has about 4 ticks in it. You can also push and hold it to switch between 4:3 or 16:9. 16:9 doesn't one-to-one scale or anything. It stretches, but if you wanted to fill the whole screen, you could do that. And then it's also got a volume dial, headphone jack, and there's AV out in the top, on, off. The battery for this, it's lithium ion, so it is rechargeable. And then I think they advertise 9 hours. I haven't validated that, but they advertise 9 hours of gameplay on one charge. Reset switch, PAL or NTSC mode. If you want to ruin your experience, you can go to PAL. Or if you just have the European versions of the game releases, then you could do that. And then power and DC, and I think that's all the buttons, other than the L and R. So let's take it apart. Bottom side. This is probably a battery cage, I would assume. But let's see. So there's our battery. Try and keep this all in order so I know how it goes back together. And this, we want to disconnect this as soon as we can to reduce chance of damaging anything else, because if it's getting any standby power, which it probably is while we're messing around with the rest and poking at things with screwdrivers, then it could short something. So let's try and figure out how to safely disconnect this early in the process. Okay, cool. So, has a foam pad. I would say for vibration damping, but there should be no vibration at all. And then there's just a 2-pin power cable here, and that just plugs in internally right in there. So pretty straightforward. You know what? I didn't mention the price on this, and I should do that before we take it apart more. I think it was about $90 which honestly isn't that bad. We're going to potentially review this more in the future. If there's enough interest in it, let us know if you want to see a full review or benchmark or anything. We'll try and figure it out, but only if there's interest in that. But anyway, about 90 bucks. So there's the battery. Battery spec is, it's from Dongguan. I've been there. It is 3.7 volts, 4,400 milliamp hours, and that's all that's listed for specs. So battery. If you want the build service I'm working on, you can get it on store.gamersnexus.net. Currently back ordered because you all keep buying it, which we appreciate. Is it that simple? Starting to get separation. Make sure we're firmly in the off position. How do I separate the top? Ah, more screws. 2 more screws up here that I didn't see. Oh, okay. Instantly separates. So there's probably some cables plugged in. Yes. Okay, buttons are coming out. There's right and left. Look at those in a moment. That cable's soldered, okay. All right, so when you first take it apart, if you ever do, you would be greeted with these wires that are soldered straight to the PCBs. So gotta be really careful with those. Those will rip out if we're not careful. Gotta disconnect it up here. And then this ribbon cable. So let's disconnect the power wire first. That's gonna be the black and the red. All the power should be drained at this point, but we're just gonna take care of anything related to power to minimize risk of damaging devices. Also, it's the shortest and most fragile cable, so, okay. And then this one, trick with these is to lift that latch. So you just lift up the latch, and there it goes. All right, so what we have, that's the one that's the most fragile, so be careful of that. You see this cable got, like, I don't know if that's intentional or not. It's just smashed. So that black, that ground right there is just completely smashed on top of this support, this sort of plus-shaped support. I'm thinking this is maybe supposed to be down there, but I mean, it's, ooh, that does not look good at all, actually. Look at how little thickness there is left to that. It's like smashed down to just the copper wire inside of it. This is maybe a bit of a quality control concern. They should probably push this down along with the red, which is either a 5 volt or a 12 volt, probably. Let's see. Can't tell what it is. So that's pretty smashed. Not too happy about that. When I rebuild it, I'm gonna shove it down there and just make sure it stays down there. So there's our buttons from the top. They're situated just against basic switch right here. It looks similar to kind of those Omron switches that are prevalent all over the world. A dip switch here. LED wired in directly. I will say it's probably pretty cool to work on a project like this as the engineers. So for the modules on here, the SMDs, they are labeled TCT 975, TCT 978, TCT 976. They have some probe hookups right here if you wanted to connect a multimeter. So battery, ground, so forth. I'm guessing the most common point of failure on this is going to be these cables, these ones that are soldered in there. If it gets knocked around enough, those will probably break. What's holding us in? This appears to be holding us in a bit. It's plugged into a small, there's a daughter board in there under the motherboard. So I'm trying to be careful to not break that. And that is for the, oh, it's for the cartridge, okay. So how are we connected? Connected to this white cable, which looks like it feeds the controllers. Is this easily disconnected? Oh, not just the, actually it's not not just the controllers that we're talking about, it's the data feed for the cartridge too. Yeah, so just daughter board for the cartridge and cart reader, and I think that's really all there is to that side of this. They're on version 3 though, apparently, of their PCB. Let's take a look at the screen side, and I'll just see if I can remove the dust from there. There's the rotary dial for the volume. And this is all passively cooled. There's really not much in here that creates any heat, so there's not even a heat sink on anything. But probably the hottest thing in here is going to be the screen, and that's sinking just into the PCB, which is all copper and fiberglass anyway, so that's kind of a natural heat sink. Another thing to be careful of here is these two wires are also soldered directly to the PCB, and they're hooked up to a circuit board that's hooked up to the left and right buttons. Is what we're looking at there, I think, yes. And that looks like that's a carbon contact button, so you can see this right here. So we have button depresses, and you get contact from the pad to the pad on the circuit board, and then your signal travels into the PCB underneath. So we just need to be careful about, where's this? This goes over here. About removing this to not rip those out. So what's holding the, can I just pop it up maybe? Yes, okay. Cool. Oh, those are soldered in as well. Speaker wires are soldered in to the board directly. Okay. So that's out. So now we're just connected to a ribbon cable, which you're not going to be able to see too well, but that one right there is what's stopping us at this point. Yikes. There we go. Okay, it is hinged. I was trying to wonder if it was just pressure fit, but nope, it was hinged. Okay, how did all of this go in? So here's our screen, hooked up with a ribbon cable. All right, cool. That was just kind of notched into place. And there's our piece of dust. So now I can fix it. All that was on the inside of the device. Okay, cool. So I'll fix that. It's going to get more dust on it while I'm working on it, so I'll fix that at the end once when I reassemble off camera. But there's your display. It's a pretty good display, honestly, like in terms of just quality for what you're playing. Like the benefit of this is it's a small device and it's playing ancient games that were low resolution. So it works out pretty well for that. But we will, I'll remove the dust at the end after we're done with this. So that's the bottom part. And what I took apart was I took the speakers out of the sockets. All the buttons fell out when I flipped it, which is what we wanted. And then we're left with this piece here where you see the speakers right there. So it's got a rubber stopper on it, or a foam stopper rather, and a little driver in there. So there's the speaker driver. And those are soldered directly to the PCB, so I have to be a little careful with those. This whole process, it's a bit more fragile than most things we take apart, like a video card, for example, just because there's so much, just small wires soldered to things, and they're not expecting you to take it apart and service it. So not built to the standards we would typically be used to, but there's your contacts. I think these are carbon contacts. I'm not sure. Let's take these off. Actually, we can look. Yes. So you've got the contact plate down there under it. And they've got some super glue or hot glue here used at the corners. I'm not sure. Or is that just flux? There's a bit of glue there holding stuff in. You can see some glue down here too, some flux. So not the cleanest solder job I've ever seen, but a bunch of resistors, a bunch of capacitors labeled R and C. There's shunt resistors even. If it were like NVIDIA GPUs, you could short them to increase the power limit. And then we've got a controller that reads AMT630A. I'd have to look that up as well. Confidential data sheet for it. That's the top result on Google. And it says it's a video display controller. So AMT630A, that thing right there, that's the video display controller, which makes sense. This is the PCB closest to the display. And the datasheet came out in 2015 to give you an idea for the age of the product. Let's see if it tells us anything. I'll just read the general description here. So the general description in the datasheet says AMT630A is a highly integrated video control SoC, or system on chip, with digital LCD TFT panel displaying controller, and could support parallel RGB panels, sRGB panels, ITU 656 panels, digital TCON, and CPU panels. AMT630A integrates a video decoder and a digital TFT LCD panel control. It accepts analog NTSC, PAL, and SECAM CVBS signals from TV tuners, DVDs, or VCR sources. Wow. Including weak and distorted signals, automatic gain control, and 9-bit one-channel AD converters, analog digital, provide high-resolution video quantization with automatic video source and mode detection. The marketing point is that it's highly efficient, low cost, and a small area PCB solution. And then if you're curious, video decoder supports composite video signal CVBS input, multiple standards supported for NTSC, NTSC Japan, so forth. 3 analog inputs, and 1 crystal required for all standards, 27 megahertz. Internal PLL to generate a video clock, and then internal buffers for video stability. And there's also noise reduction if you need it. So pretty neat small chip there. For the other stuff, I think most of it's going to be on the other PCB. For this one, let's look these up. So this user says, from what I can tell, it looks like a hybrid of the original 1990 chipset design as well as the later SNES-CPU-APU-01 board, which uses a single chip for the SPC 700 based audio hardware. On modern chipsets, the CPU is TCT-978. The 2 SPBU chips are combined into the TCT-976, and the 975 is a single chip SPC 700 clone. And that is from Ace on this forum. See if I can find some more though on this by looking up the other number on the chip. So these are, if you want to buy just one of them, they're $1.85, which is pretty expensive, but that's for one. And if you buy 2,000 of them, they come down a bit in price. It's $2,700 for 2,000, $2,106 actually. But what is it? Is it memory? So Liontech Incorporated, it is 1 megabit, 128K times 8. It is SRAM, which is static memory, and that's also pretty expensive memory. Typically you find it on like a CPU for cache. Non-volatile, according to this, and 2.7 to 5.5 volts. So that is actually memory. Are there multiple of those? Let's see. They're different models. So that one right there is 1 megabit of memory, non-volatile storage. This one is, so these right here, there are 3 of those. It says the Liontech LY62256RL is a low power CMOS static random access memory SRAM, organized as 32,768 words by 8 bits. It is fabricated using high performance, high reliability CMOS technology. Standby current is stable within the range of operating temperature, and it is well designed for low power applications and particularly well suited for battery backup, non-volatile memory applications. And this is a, let's see, who is this from? This is from Farnell.com, Farnell.com. They are a seller of this chip. So those are the parts. Now, as for the CPU and the other controllers, my understanding presently is that one of these is going to be the CPU, another one has integrated audio control, and then the video processing is over on this PCB over here, right there, or at least the video decode is over there. So that's pretty much it for the SupaBoy SFC. The only thing left is this small PCB connecting the controller inputs, but we don't need to take that out. And there's nothing under this. It's just where the cart reader goes when it's all socketed. So now I can take the dust out of my screen. And I guess that's what we did all this for. So that's it. That's the SupaBoy SFC. Pretty cool small device. And just from a gameplay standpoint, it does work. At least ours does. I read a bit of mixed reviews on it on Amazon, just on the review page. So your mileage may vary. I think it depends partly on what region your cartridges are from, because you can toggle between different regions. And I don't know how well it works for other regions, but at least for the North America region, they seem to work fine so far. So yeah, that's it. If you want to check it out or buy one, I'll link it down in the description below. We may come back and review this more properly. If you are interested in that, please let us know so that we can gauge the interest, because it's a bit different. But I think we can do some cool stuff with it, like maybe try and benchmark it. So that's it for this one. You can go to store.gamersnexus.net to pick up a shirt like this one or one of our mod mats, or patreon.com/gamersnexus. Subscribe for more. I'll see you all next time.